welcome back. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Safe Sister Circle Chats. I am your host, and my name is Dion Dillard. We're going to be kicking off this week's interview session just a little bit differently. So watch this 1-minute PSA, and I'll be back with you.
Stabbed 12 times, paralyzed, always reminded, it doesn't get easier, I got stronger. I'm a walking contradiction with endless possibilities. Emotionally, I'm unstable. Physically, I'm weak. Mentally, I am strong. I am a wounded healer. It doesn't get easier, I got stronger. I'm love. I smell like home. I sound like my mama's prayers. I look like I'm sure. I see beauty in the struggle, grateful. It never got easier, I just got stronger. I'm choosing to be strong. Be a voice for those who have been silenced. Speak on the unspoken like a phoenix, still I rise. It won't be easy, but you will be stronger. I'm here. You are here. We are here.
So are you moved? Are you as excited as I am to interview Miss Shaharia Johnson? Shaharia Johnson is a domestic violence survivor, activist, writer, speaker, and an entrepreneur. She currently resides in Washington, D.C., Ward 7, and she obtained her bachelor's in psychology with a minor in Spanish from American University. Please, everyone, please help me welcome Miss Shaharia Johnson.
Hello, everyone. I'm grateful to be here today to share my story again and parts of my journey and, what I'm currently planning. Thank you for being here. I look forward to sharing my story with you all. Please feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Thank you.
So let us continue on with what was presented in that wonderful Stronger video clip that we showed earlier. I want you to share a little bit more about your story for our audience.
Okay. Um, I'm a domestic violence survivor as of 2015. I was in a domestic abusive relationship from late 2012, beginning of 2013, up until 2015. In the beginning, everything was fine. As is a lot of abusive relationships, they don't always start out with the abuse. Towards the end of 2015, that's when I really started to end a relationship. I tried to leave a few times before I left for good. And every one of those times, he would come and apologize and give me lots of gifts and take me out, buy lots of teddy bears and flowers and everything like that. And so I went back. But the last time I didn't go back, and he knew that I was gone for good.
Wow. To go through all of that and, have those multiple times when you wanted to leave, what really defined the final moment that you left?
He was waiting for me at the top of my hill. He was on a bike. When I stopped at the stop sign at the top of the hill, he said, "Can he talk to me?" I told him that I didn't want to talk, that we could talk later because I didn't have time. And I just already didn't have a good feeling in my stomach because I had known by this point the type of person that he was. Um, I kept saying, no, we'll talk later, we'll talk later. But he still opened the car door. He got in the car. My car doors was unlocked. So like now, even from that point, I always have my doors locked because like that's something that also traumatized me. He got into my vehicle and he said that I just want to talk to you. I'll get out of your car before we get on the highway. And if you know the Deanwood area, Ward 7, Northeast DC, you have the highway that you can get on from Kenilworth Avenue. So I was approaching Kenilworth Avenue. I pulled to the right in front of it was a liquor store right there. And I said, okay, I'll see you later. And that's when he pulled out his knife and he told me to keep driving. So once he pulled out his knife, I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I didn't know that he was serious, but I knew it was serious because it was happening. But I was just overcome with like shock and disbelief. I immediately tried to pull out my phone when I realized he was like really, really serious. He took my phone from me and he told me to keep driving. He wanted me to keep driving on the highway, but I didn't. I decided to make a right. and then another right to kind of get back on that street going past Deanwood Station. At this point, I'm, scared for my life. He's holding the knife to me, trying to direct me to a place, I guess, where he thought people wouldn't be at. I made a left by Deanwood Station because I knew that I was trying to get close to my sister's house. She lives a couple blocks away from Deanwood Station. He noticed that I was trying to get towards her house. And as I was approaching a block before her house, he told me to make a right so I wouldn't continue to go straight towards her house. And he said that if I kept going straight, that he would stab me. So as we were approaching the corner, I tried to slam on the gas. And once I tried to slam on the gas, he jerked the wheel. The car went over this curb, and so it was immediately disabled. Like it just wasn't gone. So the car went over the curb. We was right there, and that's when he started to stab me. I still had on my seatbelt, so I have a couple defense wounds on my wrist. Um, I also have like 7 stab wounds in the back of my neck and spine, and I don't even know how many stab wounds I have in my head. I feel like I'm constantly discovering more. Like I could feel where the you know, where the wounds are, where the scars are. And I immediately went paralyzed. So I'm still in my seatbelt, car still running, and I could just feel the cold blood running down my body. And I felt my head like so slowly, leaning down. My body is like slowly twisting up. I couldn't move. I couldn't move anything. I was still able to talk, but I wasn't able to move. Like I couldn't get myself out of that position.
You mentioned that you were paralyzed in the car. Were you able to obtain any assistance at that time?
There was a guy whose house I was in front of. I was kind of trying to yell to him to, can I use your phone? Can you call the police? But all he said was he didn't have a phone, which I knew was a lie because, everybody had some form of communication. I think he just didn't want to get involved. And then a few moments later, another guy, he approached the vehicle, and I was able to, tell him what happened. He called the police. He called for the ambulance, and they was asking him a bunch of questions. He had wrapped his shirt around my neck to try to prevent me from bleeding out. He stayed with me the entire time. And if it wasn't for him, I probably could have died right there because I know that I was bleeding out a lot. I know that I couldn't move, and I don't think anybody would have came to help in time. So I thank God for that guy, who decided to approach the scene. A lot of people wouldn't, or they would just start recording, or I'm just thankful for him being there.
My goodness, I am so glad that you were able to get the assistance that you needed. Were they able to find your attacker?
I was able to describe my attacker, my ex. I was able to tell them what he looked like, where he lived. And so they surrounded his house immediately after that. And so they was able to find him because he was at home. They said he was just at home chilling like nothing had ever happened. So they was able to find him and immediately detain him. And they told me that at first he was denying everything, you know, saying that she had a protection order against me. Why would I try to go near her? Why would I try to go talk to her? And so he was just like outright denying everything, saying it wasn't him. And then the detectives told me that they showed him pictures, pictures of me, like in that state. And then that's when he broke down crying and he finally admitted it.
Shahari, I must admit that as you are sitting there and you're reliving your story, and as I see you getting choked up and I'm hearing about your experience, I know that I personally am as well. So, audience, please bear with us as we continue throughout this interview and emotions, make themselves known. Shaharia, I would love to ask, what was it like to rehabilitate after that experience?
I was transported to PG Hospital, and I guess that's where they stabilized me. I was going in and out of consciousness, but I later found out that's where I had to get 2 chest tubes, and because both of my lungs had collapsed from the blood. Um, so yeah, they stabilized me at PG, and then they was telling my family that they couldn't, sustain me there, so I had to get medevac so I had to get they sent a helicopter from me from PG to take me to Baltimore Shock Trauma Center. And at Baltimore Shock Trauma Center, I was there for about 2 weeks. And there they was still trying to further stabilize me, test my abilities. They would come in and test to see if I could, feel, move, things like that. So every day they would come in, like pinch each toe, pinch each finger, prick me with the things to try to test my abilities. And so because one of the stab wounds went through my spine, I have an incomplete spinal cord injury called Brown-Séquard syndrome. So because it was incomplete, I was able to recover to the point that I had, but if it was a complete sever, I could have been paralyzed for life. So from University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center, after they stabilized me and I was able to like start moving a little bit, they I, they took me to National Rehab Hospital, which is in DC on Irving Street. It's part of the MedStar Corporation, and that was my home for about 3.5 to 4 months. So from there, it was just a bunch of therapy, basically 6 days a week, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then I think they call it recreational therapy. So a chance to just like do stuff that they consider fun. So it was a long journey because that's when, well, actually at University of Maryland Shock Trauma Center, that's when they told me I may not be able to walk ever again. I may not be able to, use my right side, like any of those things ever again. And so at National Rehab Hospital, that's when I did all of the therapy, and then like some of my functions started to come back. Um, but it was still a long journey, like learning how to do everything again. I was totally dependent on my doctors. Like I had to get catheter because I wasn't able to use the bathroom because of my spinal cord injury. Um, I still had the chest tubes in at this point, so that was painful in itself. Them having to come, change the pads and stuff like that. Having to give my basic diaper change because I couldn't use the bathroom myself. Just and then needing help to get washed up. So I was dependent in every type of way. Even when it came to eating, like my family would come to visit me every day, and so they would help me eat, like feed me, because I wasn't at this point able to use my right hand, which is my dominant hand. So that was a journey in itself. That was a journey in itself, and that's my story in a nutshell.
I'm so glad that you were able to have that type of support throughout this experience. Are there still any residual consequences to what you did experience?
Yes, there are a lot of residual consequences, especially when I was just getting out of the hospital. They had me taking a whole medley of different medications like Lyrica, Baclofen, Duloxetine, Senna, a whole bunch of things to try to manage the pain. I was in immense pain every day, every night. So a lot of the medications they gave, one of the medications was for muscle spasms because I would get muscle spasms constantly, especially on my right side, which is still my weaker side. So the spasm will range from my shoulder down to my toe. So everything will like tense up at once. So I was taking Baclofen, the highest dose, 3 times a day. I was taking Lyrica because I have a lot of nerve pain because of my spinal cord injury. I have a lot of nerve pain near my wounds and then just random places. So, like I was saying, depression, anxiety, PTSD, those things were very overwhelming, especially right after I got out of the hospital. Like I wasn't happy. I was feeling a lot of sorrow, um, a lot of regret. I was feeling a whole bunch of things and I was asking like, why me? Saying like, I didn't deserve this. Like, what did I do to deserve something like this? How could someone be so cruel, so harsh? So I went through so many different emotions. So I would say like, even though I was in immense physical pain, I think the mental pain was actually worse.
Is there a specific domestic violence type?
A lot of people think it only happens to a certain type of person. DV can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter your occupation. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, an officer, teacher, celebrity, or just a mom. Like you can be anybody, make any type of money, live anywhere, and it can still happen to you.
What was your major takeaway from this experience?
People don't leave because they are being made to. You have to be ready, because although you're, like, being abused or in a toxic situation, you still may have a lot of love for that person. So it comes with a lot of mixed emotions, which is, very understandable. Just so people can know how prevalent it is. And these are national statistics from the DC Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They say, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the US. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. They also say 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, and/or intimate partner stalking, with impacts such as injury, fearfulness, PTSD, victim services, STDs, and other things that come with as well.
Again, I just have to express how in awe I am of how you have overcome all of this. And I think our audience, as well as myself, would love to know, have you reached a place of healing?
Okay, yes. So throughout all of that work, I started to become a speaker, and also started to write out my experiences, my thoughts in the form of poetry. And so that's like during that time, I came up with the idea of my nonprofit called Silence Kills. I'm waiting on my incorporation papers to come back as approved, but basically, now Silence Kills will be a collective to basically educate and try to help people heal by speaking unspoken using art. So I want to use this organization to provide permanent solutions like holistic solutions, recreational and artistic solutions to try to help people cope with the aftermath of trauma and domestic violence.
All of those aspirations that you were just mentioning, I think are going to be very, very beneficial. And I wish you absolutely nothing but the best as your organization continues to thrive. Do you know of any additional resources that you may be able to share with our audience?
Yes, there are a couple of organizations I want to put on the spotlight. Excuse me. And one is DC Safe. And you can find them at dcsafe.org. That's a big organization in DC. And what they do is they try to ensure the safety and self-determination of domestic violence survivors. They provide emergency services, court advocacy, and system reform. So if you're currently in a court battle with your abuser or trying to gain custody, things like that, this organization helps with that. Again, that's DC Safe. So the DC Coalition Against Domestic Violence is another good organization. They're basically a coalition of different uh, organizations and businesses, service providers that's trying to help DV survivors, gain access to anything. Like on their website, you can see the different referrals, information, statistics, and a lot of other things. They also work with specific survivors every year to create a PSA like the one that you saw at the beginning of this video, to trying to get their message across.
That's awesome, that you were able to have that type of connection with other organizations throughout the District of Columbia. So, is there anything else that you would like our viewers to know before we end today?
Yes, I invite everybody to check out my YouTube channel. It's called Shaharia Johnson. It's my first name, Shehariah, last name Johnson. And on that page, I've posted my story, my PSA, and I also do poetry. So I have a few of my poems up there as well. So please check it out, subscribe, stay tuned. And I also want to let the people know that I'm open for bookings. I enjoy sharing my story, my journey, my process of healing as a public speaker. So you can hit me up if you would like somebody to come speak at any of your upcoming events. So I've been on multiple panels as well. Like I've done a training for the DC Courts Domestic Violence Unit. I've worked with HRSA. I think that's the Health Resources and Services Administration. I did a training up there as well. So I've worked with a couple government organizations already, and so I'm open. I'm open for that too.
Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. for being a part of this Domestic Violence Awareness Month with the Safe Sister Circle. Thank you so much for being a part of this week's session of Circle Chats, and I cannot wait until we are able to meet again.
I appreciate being here. And I look forward to watching all of the other circle chats to come.
So after that truly inspirational session with Shaharia Johnson, I just want to thank our audience for once again tuning in as we continue to share messages around domestic violence during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Please continue to donate and also join all of our social media platforms to stay in the know. Until next time, please continue to be safe and take care.